Thinking about buying the redesigned Ducati Monster? In this video, I'll cover the Monster from top to bottom. However, this isn't just some short-term, first-look review. This is based on 4,000 miles of riding on freeways, highways, and lots of twisting mountain roads. I got a few opinions to share, so if you're interested in the new Ducati Monster, stay tuned. First, I'm going to share some background. I own several bikes, but a few months ago, I decided to look for a lightweight, sportier bike that could handle the tight, curvy mountain roads that surround my home in San Diego. To take advantage of these sport bike-friendly roads, I wanted a lightweight bike with plenty of torque to power me out of one sharp curve, but with enough braking power to help me dive into the next. What I didn't want was an over-muscled, big horsepower bike. When I'm leaned over in a tight, diminishing angle curve, more horsepower isn't going to do anything for me. The extra weight just makes the bike harder to maneuver and, for me, less fun. Sometimes more isn't better. I looked at the Triumph Street Triple, the Yamaha MT-09, a 2018 Ducati 821cc Monster, and the 2021 937 Monster. All lightweight, torquey bikes designed for canyon carving. Ultimately, I decided on the new Monster. It seemed to have the right mix of what I wanted and had the fiery Italian personality to go along with. Before we continue, I'm going to assume that you've read the magazine reviews and you've watched the highly technical videos that talk about the specifics of the engine and suspension, etc. You know what this bike is made of, and you know that it's been completely redesigned for 2021. So I'm not going to dig into all the individual specs. The questions I want to answer are, how does it ride when you push it hard, and is this the bike for you? I guess the best place to start is with the heart of the bike, the engine. It's a 937cc engine, similar to what you'll find in the Ducati Multistrada 950, Supersport, and Hyper Motard. Max torque of 69 foot-pounds comes in at 6,500 RPM, but there's plenty of torque throughout the RPM range. I found that the previous generation 821cc Monster didn't have much torque at low RPMs, so you really had to rev the engine to get it to move. Then it became jumpy since you're immediately in peak torque range. The new 937 Monster has an even distribution of power across the RPM range, which makes it easy to handle, while offering power whenever you need it. The bike rides smoothly, even at low RPMs, and immediately responds to a quick flip of the throttle. When I'm coming out of a tight hairpin corner at low RPM, the bike instantly accelerates without having to build up RPMs or me downshifting into a lower gear. I ride aggressively in and out of hairpins and through changing corners. Any limitations of my performance come from my own ability, not the bike's. Peak horsepower kicks in at 9,500 RPM. When I'm zooming along at 90 miles an hour on the freeway, which is about 6,000 RPM, I can twist the throttle and still take off. I'm not sure what top speed is on the 937 Monster, but I do happen to know that its maximum 111 horsepower leaves room for acceleration at speeds that will put you in jail if you get caught. As a practical matter, you can cruise at triple digits with this bike. The bike may not be a 200 mile per hour bull in a candy shop, but the top end horsepower is there when you need it. You can pass what you want, when you want. One thing I noticed when I first jumped on the bike is that between roughly 4,000 and 5,000 RPM, the engine hits a resonating frequency that sounds and feels something between a hum and a rumble. It was noticeable enough that at first I thought maybe the tires were out of round. At first it bugged me, but now I don't notice it. I think it's one of those things that also faded away as I went through the break-in period. Older Ducatis require an expensive valve adjustment at 8,000 miles. The 2021 Monster puts this service off until 16,000 miles. Good thing too, Ducati service isn't cheap. The 600-mile oil change and checkup cost me over $350. The tires are Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3s. Unlike some of the doggish tires that come stock on other bikes, my Indian Scout for example, these are excellent performing tires. Definitely sticky enough leaning through the corners, stable on the freeways. Minimal signs of wear even after 4,000 miles of hard riding. They haven't let me down. The only bad news here is that after getting a flat on my rear tire, I switched over to the stickier Rosso Corso in the back. Both excellent tires. I'm sold on Pirelli. One of the critiques I've heard on the Monster is that the suspension lacks adjustability. It's true, the rear shock is only adjustable for preload. There's no dampening, rebound, or other adjustments. Overall, though, the suspension is set up to be more forgiving and absorb a wide range of road bumps and divots. The more I ride this bike, the more I appreciate the adaptable nature of its suspension. On the track, it was firm enough to handle the hard braking and flat-out acceleration. On twisting roads where it has to deal with everything from cattle crossings to dirt on the asphalt to potholes, the suspension shines. It can handle pretty much anything you throw at it while keeping you comfortable all day long. By comparison, I also own a Yamaha R6, an aggressive sport bike designed for racing on the track. The R6's suspension is highly adjustable, but overall super stiff. Great for the track, but punishing on the highway. Bumps that the Monster can easily handle will throw you from the R6. A more performance-oriented setup doesn't always translate to a better riding experience. For the unpredictable mountain and canyon riding I do, I'll take the Monster's more adaptable suspension any day over the higher-priced R6's setup. Now when it comes to brakes, the Monster sports a set of Bembos, front and rear. Again, they do their job. They're forceful enough that I can two-finger them when flying into a corner, but they're not so sticky that I'll worry about them tossing me over the front of the bars if I accidentally grab too much brake. I had no problems decelerating hard from over 100 miles per hour down to half that on the track. I did upgrade to carbon-only race pads in the front for just a little more feel and grippiness. The stock ones were fine, but I just wanted an upgrade since I was heading to the track. Coming straight from the dealer, the rear brake lever was angled a little too far down for my tastes. So when I brought the bike in for its 600-mile first oil change, I had the dealer bring it up a little bit. There's not much adjustability there, so it didn't get moved too far. In any event, I'm used to it now, and I barely use the rear brake anyhow. By the way, the Monster has the same brakes as the Triumph Street Triple. The only difference being that Ducati uses a slightly larger front disc. Standard on the 2021 Monster is the Ducati Quick Shifter. The DQS, as it's known, allows you to shift up and down from first to sixth and back without pulling in the clutch. The key with any quick shifting system is that it has to work predictably. Either it works every time or you can't rely on it, so you don't use it. I've heard from owners of previous generation Monsters that they stopped using the quick shifter because it just wasn't reliable. The good news for 2021 is that the quick shifter on this bike works. It works cleanly every single time, right when you need it. The key to using the Monster's DQS coming out of first and second is that it works best when you're hammering on the throttle. Countered from what you might think, don't back off on the throttle to shift. In low gears, the more throttle, the better the system reacts. Coming out of third to fourth requires less throttle, and from there up, it's an easy click into the gear above. When it comes to downshifting, you have to let off on the gas all the way for the DQS to work. If you're on the throttle at all, the shift lever won't budge no matter how much you stomp on it. Release the throttle and it easily clicks down a gear on command. Early on, I did get a quick shift into neutral. Not sure how that happened, but it hasn't happened since. I'm putting this one down to the fact that I really didn't understand how the system worked, so there was a lot more trial and error on my part, and mistakes followed. Personally, I love the quick shifter. When accelerating fast, I can keep both hands firmly on the grips. Heading into corners, the quick shifter allows me to keep my speed up since I can hold off on shifting until just a little later. It also eliminates that slight acceleration caused by pulling in the clutch to downshift. If I'm in a corner and find myself overgeared, I can pop down just before accelerating out. When I'm riding in the mountains, I'm almost exclusively on the DQS. Around town, I'll use the clutch more since I'm usually going easier on the throttle. If you're riding an older bike with no quick shifting, this upgrade alone can change your game. The riding position on the Monster is generally upright with your feet only slightly behind you. Though it's not as relaxed as with a more touring-oriented bike, I can stand up to stretch my legs if need be. On the other hand, it's nowhere near as aggressive as on a full-blown sport bike. In general, the stance keeps the weight off my hands and makes for a far more comfortable riding position. I regularly ride for 200 miles or more in a long morning. Yeah, I'm a little stiff, but that's motorcycle riding for you. Overall, the seat and riding position are friendly enough for longer rides, but aggressive enough that you can drop your chin and hang off the side for fast runs through the corners. One comment here. The seat is designed more for you to sit in it than on it. Ducati expects you to keep your butt in place and not be sliding around. If you do shift your butt from side to side while going through curves, you're going to really have to pick your butt up to move it. It's a little more of a leg workout, but you get used to it after a while. The bike itself is slim between the legs. At 366 pounds dry, it's a flyweight in the bike world. I've had a couple riders look at it for the first time and assume that it's a 600cc bike judging from its stature. I get a kick out of announcing that, no, it's a 937cc bike, and then I see the surprised look on their faces. The bike fits my 160-pound, 5'10" frame perfectly. I could see, however, where someone who falls in the big and tall category might find that the bike is just a tad too small for them. My biggest gripe with the Monster is the mirrors. I can see my shoulders in them, but not much else. I quickly shift them out to CRG bar end mirrors that rotate in and out as needed. I get a much better view of what's going on beside me, and they look much better too. They're about $100 each depending where you buy them. The install is easy. By the way, if you lift up the seat, you'll find a small storage compartment and a USB charger. The 2021 Monster is equipped with anti-lock brakes, traction control, wheelie control, various ride modes, and even a launch control that automatically accelerates the bike for you from a dead stop. I've never used this last feature, but if I ever try to do timed runs at the drag strip, I'll report back on how it works. As far as ride modes go, there are three: Urban, Touring, and Sport. Urban cuts the power down to 80 horsepower from 111 horsepower. Touring maintains top power, but offers a more mellow throttle response. Sport is more aggressive. I'll be honest, I don't know much about the first two modes. I put the bike in sport mode after a few days and just left it there. Overall, I find the Monster 937 to be smooth all around on its power delivery. I never feel like the bike is going to get away from me. The power is there when I need it, when I want it. End of story. To be fair, I ride in California where it rarely rains, and if it does, I just wait a day until it dries up. If I did ride in the rain, I'd probably switch to the touring mode just to be safe. If I jump on the throttle in first or second gear, the front wheel is going to pop right off the ground. That's where the wheelie control comes in. I have my bike's wheelie control set to 1, which is the least intrusive setting. The first time I hammered on the throttle expecting to pop a wheelie, I was disappointed because nothing happened. When I let off on the gas, however, I felt the front wheel drop back down to the ground. The front wheel had lifted at least a foot off the ground, but then the wheelie control smoothly controlled my power output, so it stayed there without me realizing it. That's what I call slick. The same sort of seamless working in the background feel applies to the ABS and traction control. If you brake hard, the ABS and traction control will just kick in. You probably won't even realize it's doing its thing. I once skidded the back tire on a blown shift. Traction control took care of it like a paid mob fixer. No problems, nothing to look at here. I have my traction control set to 3, which gives the bike the greatest level of control. Basically, the traction control keeps your back wheel from sliding out while rounding corners, braking hard, or riding over slick surfaces. For my aggressive mountain and canyon carving, it hasn't slowed me down. I'm happy to give up a little more control over risking a high side or a slide into the guardrail. The biggest downside to the 937 Monster is that because it's so new, there's no aftermarket accessories available for it. The only complete exhaust available for the bike is a $2,600 Terminioni available through Ducati. Throw in tax and installation and you're at well over $3,000. That's a bit too rich for me. No aftermarket shocks or even something simple like frame sliders are available. A little patience is required if you plan to upgrade the 937 Monster. So I've covered the basics and individual components of the bike, but how do they add up? Are they greater than the sum of their parts? Great specs are nice, but what matters is how the bike rides and how the bike makes you feel. Well, here's what I think. The star of the 937 Monster show is its treasure chest of low-end torque. When I traded bikes with a friend who owns a street triple, he kept saying, "This bike is so much fun." he didn't want to give it back. Though the Street Triple technically makes more horsepower, the Monster has more usable power, especially down low where you can put it to work on the road. I often hit the mountains with a friend who rides a Suzuki GSX 750, another bike that technically has more horsepower, but when we're coming out of corners, the Monster's high torque makes it easy for me to pull away from him. Compared to my Yamaha R6, the Monster is way more street friendly, and not just in a nice way. The Monster's high torque makes it easy to power through tight curvy roads that would leave the R6 chugging for more RPMs. The Monster is a far more comfortable and all-around more maneuverable bike as well. What surprised me most about the 937 Monster is just how versatile this bike is. No matter what road or track conditions I throw at the bike, it doesn't just handle them, it does a great job in the process. All of the design, build, and technology add up to offer a truly fantastic riding experience. However good a rider you are, this bike will allow you to perform at the best of your ability. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted a lightweight, easy to maneuver bike. The new Monster just nails it. The bike seems to just read my mind. It goes where I want it to go. Flipping it from side to side, from one curve to the next, feels effortless. Riding twisty mountain roads feels like surfing the asphalt. It's truly a feeling of being one with the bike. A bike, of course, is only as good as its rider, so I don't jump on it thinking that I can suddenly lean through corners like I'm a Moto America racer. Still, though I'm riding faster than ever, I feel more confident and much safer. This bike has my back. If I only had one bike to ride, the Monster would be it. Now, you can argue that of course I'm going to ride a nice review since I just bought the bike. But I tell you what, the smile on my face is 100% real. If you have any questions, just ask away in the comments. As always, stay safe and enjoy the ride.